Are you growing petunias this year? If so, you should watch this video to learn some tips on how to prevent and control budworms. I've grown petunias for many years, but I've never taken it too seriously, and when they started to lose their buds and die out, I didn't do any research as to why. But this year I wanted that to change. I want to keep my investment of my time and my money looking good as possible for as long as possible. So this year I just found out that I have budworms on my petunias. So this video is going to be all about how to identify budworm damage on your petunias, and then how to control and prevent those budworms from continuing to damage your plants. So first we're going to start off with talking about what are budworms and how do you know if you have them or not. Budworms are the larval stage of a moth that lays its eggs in your plants, and those eggs develop into the budworm larva or little caterpillars. They are a little green to brown, even have some black stripes on there, and they eat the buds and petals of your flowers. You can identify budworm damage from small holes in your leaves, or if your blooms are just starting to wither up and die. I'm going to give you a closer up look of what budworm damage looks like and show you what some budworms actually look like. Budworms can be commonly found on geraniums, petunias, and even snapdragons and roses. One big clue that you have budworms are holes in your petals just like this. Another sign is that your newly formed buds are drying up and dying off. The caterpillars love to munch on those newly forming buds and eat them from the inside out so they never develop. Another clue that you could have budworms are the budworm droppings. They're actually called frass, caterpillar frass, and it's caterpillar excrement. And they're these little black dots that you'll find all over your plants. So this plant right here, this is a petunia with some hot lip salvia. This has just the beginning stages of budworm damage. However, I have some other examples where the budworms totally got out of control. Let me show you. This container used to be full of beautiful purple petunia blooms with little white spots known as the Galaxy Petunia. Thank goodness that Dusty Miller and some Creeping Jenny is still looking nice. One day it just seemed like all of these blooms fell off, and I was just left with the dried up blooms and tons of little black spots all over the plant. Those little black spots are the caterpillar frass or caterpillar excrement. So I went through this plant yesterday and I picked off over 16 budworms. Here's what those budworms look like. There is that darker green one with those black stripes, as well as that brighter green one. I picked these off yesterday, so they're moving pretty slow right now. When you pick them off the plant first thing, they're actually pretty fast and wiggly, and I'll admit they give me a little bit of the creeps. Here's another container that has some petunias in it that are also suffering from budworm damage. There's not a lot of petunias in this container, but they are showing damage. You can see a lot of the blooms are drying up and dying. And then the closer I get in here, oh, I see a budworm right now munching on where the bud of the leaf would be found. So there he is, just happy as can be, eating all my flower buds. There's also a little bit of caterpillar frass right there. Those are the caterpillar droppings. So I'm going to be taking out any budworms that I see and then giving this plant a treatment. I just pulled that budworm off of here, and you can see right in there, it's chewed a hole right into the base of the flower, and that's how they destroy these flowers, is by eating them from the base of that bloom, and then the bloom just withers up and dies. Now that you know what budworms are and how they can destroy your petunias, it's time to talk about how to prevent and control them. Your first step is to inspect your plants. Look for little holes in the leaves, look for those little black droppings or the caterpillar frass, and check to see if you have any budworms on your plants. The next step is to use a spray to either prevent the budworms from settling in or to battle them if you already have them, which is the case that I'm in. The spray that I'm going to be using today is called neem oil. Neem oil is meant for organic gardening, and it can control aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, black spot, rust, and powdery mildew. So it's a helpful chemical to have in your organic garden. However, it's still important to make sure that you spray in the early morning or the evening to make sure that you're not going to be disturbing any other beneficial insects or bees. It should be bee safe because the way that neem oil works is that it soaks into the plant, and then the caterpillars will ingest that plant material and it will kill them from the inside out by disrupting their hormone system. So I'm going to be using neem oil today. There are other products that you can use. You can use a product that includes BT, which is Bacillus thuringiensis or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a... Well, these won't actually turn into butterflies. They'll turn into moths. If they were butterflies, it's really important that you don't use neem oil on them. So if you have a plant like dill that attracts beneficial butterflies, you don't want to kill those caterpillars, and this would do that. So be really mindful of what you're spraying it on. Bonide makes a BT product, and Monterey also makes a BT product. Those products, as well as neem oil, you can find at your big box store, a garden center. You can even find these at Fred Meyer. I buy the concentrate because it's a much better deal than buying the pre-mixed spray. So I'm going to be mixing up some of this concentrate into my garden sprayer. The ratio for killing caterpillars is going to be 2 to 4 tablespoons of neem oil per 1 gallon of water. I'm going to be using this pump sprayer. This is a super handy tool to have in the garden. I got this one super cheap at Home Depot. It was, I think, about 10 bucks. You can get these at any home and garden store, and they're really handy to have around. Another option for spraying your own concentrate is a little hand pump size, but this is just not big enough for me, and I really enjoy the size of the 1 gallon sprayer. It can be used for so many different things. So I'm going to mix up my solution in here, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to apply it to my plants. I've got my spray all mixed up and ready, and I'm going to start treating these plants. I'm going to cover them until they are dripping wet, and I'm going to make sure that I cover the tops and the undersides and down at the base of the plant to make sure that I've covered all of those budworms. Well, I got all of my containers that had petunias treated with neem oil, and hopefully in a few weeks I'll be seeing some more blooms. If you plan on trying to spray any of your flowers or vegetables in the garden with a new spray, make sure that you test that new spray before covering your plants completely like I did. You can test it just in a small spot and then wait a day or two to see how your plant reacts. It's also really important that you are spraying your plants in the morning or the evening when it's really cool and before the bees are active. If your plant is looking wilted or needs watering, make sure that you water your plant really well the day before and that you're not spraying any wilted plants, because that will stress your plants out even more, even though these products aren't meant to harm your plants. Make sure that you do it when it's not in direct sunlight. If you've learned something about petunias or budworms today, please give this video a thumbs up. I've learned a lot about petunias and budworms in the last week because I had this huge infestation of budworms. So I really want to help you make sure that your petunias look great all summer long and help you protect them from getting budworms like I did. If you're interested in more tips about container gardening, vegetable gardening, and landscape gardening, click the subscribe button and that notification bell so that you can get alerts every time I post a new video. Thanks so much for watching this video today, and I hope that you have learned something new about petunias. Have a great day!